on time so you can make your bond payment. Right? So government's got this weird idea, and many people have this weird idea that these businesses are these big things. Only 15,000 businesses in South Africa have a turnover in 2009, admittedly, of over 35 million rand a year. It's a very, very thin place. That's excluding about 512 state-owned enterprises. So that just puts things into perspective. Yeah?
Right. Take a couple more. Mr. Schussler, the gentleman in the back.
So, Mr. Schussler, I just want to ask about the bulge in the public sector, where you have a director, deputy chief director, assistant director, deputy assistant chief director, and 15 other assistants of one director, and the chief director who's an assistant to another director.
Well, you need to promote people.
And the problem there is it almost seems as if you're not trading in the currency of ideas, but rather trying to get as many people in the public sector as possible. So there's a lot of staff riders in many instances, but there is no sense that we're creating something. We're trading in the currency of ideas. Whether or not those things are tangible, just pie in the sky type of things. What do you think the role of innovation is in terms of economic growth? And really creating, I think, different sectors and different industries as well.
Innovation is the future of the economy in many senses. It's not the only thing. There's also efficiency gains. But the majority of growth, or the largest part of it, maybe not the majority, but will come from innovation. Other things are going to be efficiencies, economies of scale. Probably you could say a better way of doing things, which in a way is innovation. But there's sorts of innovation. Sometimes there's a new product called an iPad, brings a new market to play, or a fax machine in the old days, or whatever it was, a train 200 years ago, 300 years ago. But there's also there's another part, there's a constant improvement. So you figure out in your business, and putting it back to real businesses on the ground, is you figure out, well, the secretary can also do sending out the accounts. Okay, maybe not. Maybe this one can. So you work out how things go, and you constantly try to make small adjustments to improve. One thing probably Gordon has said now, and he had to say that, but I think they're going to get very serious. The government growth in employment has been a major driver in South Africa. And the government and the municipalities make up about 22% of all formal, non-farm payrolls. And they get 28% of the money. So government in general doesn't pay too bad. Government, however, employs more graduates, because many of you will end up in government, either teaching or in nursing or wherever the case may be. But the big thing is, I think, government innovation is maybe a bit far removed right now, but shouldn't be as far removed. But the one thing that is very difficult, there's lots of things where innovations have gone wrong in government, I would argue, as well. And for example, the teaching methods and stuff that weren't implemented properly and weren't thought through, that is basically making a generation of kids a little bit more difficult for them to become contributing members of society. So sometimes I think government should just relax a little bit on the red tape and all those guys and all their chief directors on that side, and spend a little bit more time sorting out the discipline and the learning materials and everything in a school situation. And I'm not here to say people should get hit or not hit at school, that's not what I'm talking about in discipline, but get that type of stuff going, I think is very, very important. I think it's also important that government, where I think our government has done well, just really, really well. I think we don't always realize it, but that Treasury Department has done extraordinarily well. Like our accounts, our Auditor General, our Reserve Bank, parts of the DTI, there are other parts that work really, really well. When it comes to the implementation of stuff on the ground, however, I get a bit angry when you've got more people in central government and often in provincial government, and they lay back and they say, no, it's local governments. And local governments, haven't always got that ability, also need that support. So I think those are the type of things, but that's a totally different issue. But the fact of the matter is, I think, if there's one good news I can put down on government where it's really changed in a democratic order, apart from that we all have democracy and freedom and stuff, and another thing that's holding up is our courts, reasonably well, and I think that's also important. But the fact that we've got some very good government departments, we should not always remember. But it is worthwhile pointing out that yes, often government does not have the innovation, often it's misplaced innovation, and very often the biggest problem of government is red tape.
Thank you. Take two more. Yes, sir.
Just got a question about statistics. The Occupy Wall Street movement has brought out the idea that there's a big disconnect between the people at the very top and the other 99%. So the top 1% is actually disconnected from the mainstream population in terms of wealth. But now, when you're trying to look at a general comparison between groups, wouldn't it be wiser to discount the top 1% of each group to get a more average look of the average person? Because aren't they skewed?
Well, they should then put out median per capita income, because there's, as I said, there's a difference in family, and maybe a median income will give us a better idea. But then we should also be careful and say, but there should be a median work income, because that's some. But just on your Occupy Wall Street, I believe that we've got to make a difference in what is, let's call financial innovation aside, but you know, the people that have ridden this financial tsunami well, okay, and the 1%ers that are maybe like the Bill Gates or the Steve Jobs that have created something real. Because I think, you know, we should also realize that people like those entrepreneurs have created millions of job opportunities, not just in their country, but around the world. And there's a difference between, in my book, and I'm not sure what the economic theory is behind this, Philip, excuse me, but in entrepreneurs, because I think we're in a brave new world in that sense, and guys doing financial, look, we need those financial markets. They're supposed to disperse risk, okay? And put your pensions aside and everything. Do you know who's the biggest stock exchange, who's the biggest owners of the stock exchange? Our pension funds. Okay, around the world, that's a fact. That's not disputed, I think. But what we need to know, and very often it's government pension funds. In South Africa, the biggest pension fund is a government pension fund. So big, huh? I drove in here, there's a government employees pension fund thing on your main street. This is sort of like the trustees of the pension fund, and the people that are supposed to do the admin work of the pension, whereas the PIC is more the investment part. But nonetheless, so where our financial markets have very often failed us, apart from the droch and everything like that, because there was that too, Bernie made us, is that it did not take risk properly, was not priced properly into these markets. And a lot of people in those financial markets manipulated things. And let me tell you, one of the manipulations was just simple to put it in, it wasn't just for companies. If you look at the Greek government, they only got into the euro because Goldman Sachs helped them manipulate, take debt off their book and put it onto some other type of instrument so it didn't have to be on the country's balance sheet. And that, so on. So, you know, at that stage, Goldman Sachs could claim they were helping the Greek government. Little did they know 10 years later, this was part of the euro crisis. So I don't know what to make of that, but that 1% argument, I think there is something to be said in that 1% argument on those people that did not do their job in dispersing the risk in the financial markets. But where I would disagree with the 1% movement is that if an entrepreneur who's done a lot of things and generated something new, and that new thing, call it the iPad, call it Windows, call it whatever, is around there, that we need, because that's how the world has gone forward. The world has always gone forward, as that gentleman pointed out, on innovation. And a lot of those entrepreneurs, we don't even know their names, but they may have innovated a new computer system for aircraft ticketing, or you know, something else that we don't always think of every day. So that's different to the financial one. That's just
So you have the last.
Yes, my question is actually based on the findings. I'm just looking at actually a comparison between us and Germany. We seem to be owning more assets, and usually it's actually coming as a surprise that even like the houses and the stuff. I just wanna find out from you, is it of a benefit to own assets and have less income? What impact will it have to us in the future? Has it always been like that, or it's just because of the recent developments that took place?
No, I think Germany is very different. I have a German background, so I must confess that, okay? My niece in Germany teaches at what they call a Hotelfachschule. It's like a holiday hotel school, and she teaches English and business economics, like a technical in the old days here. Okay? She stays in a place that she rents from a landlord, and she's secure in her, or falsely secure maybe, in a sense of the way Europe is going, that she has a pension, that she's taken care of for life. So she doesn't need to go through, because she's paying quite a lot in taxes. You know, a lot more than we are, but in those taxes are included a proper medical and your pension, and you know your pension is going to be paid out to you, the government being around for a while, and even if the parties change and it becomes, you know, radical in the German sense is when somebody runs onto a soccer field with no pants on. Okay. So it's maybe a false sense of security, so I think that's part of it. The second thing is, during the war, there was not that much money after the war for everybody to pay and build their houses again. So government and the Marshall Plan of the Americans put down a lot of money, and in that process they rebuilt Germany, okay? And if you compare Germany to us in the same period, by then a lot of people in Germany were staying, not maybe in RDP houses, but what I would call, you know, for lack of a better name, very high quality flats. You know, four families staying in one building type of thing would be a typical German thing that I got to know. And if you look at 18 and a half years after the war, that would have been towards the end of 1963. I was already born then. The Germans were busy with their miracle, the economic miracle that was making them rich. All right? If we are busy with the high economic miracle, which I thought at some stage we were busy with, I think we've lost track, and we're just not there. But because of that cradle-to-grave sort of welfare state, which is probably not sustainable, I think, they don't feel the need to own houses. And because of the history of the war and everything, and where people got mixed up, especially in Eastern Germany as well, where the communist government took away a lot of possessions, and then moved families around and everything like that, because that's what communists do very well, is build grey buildings and move people around, and confuse matters and so on. So people don't have property ownership sorted out in many places in Eastern Europe, and East Germany, or the old East Germany being one of them. So that also plays a role. In Switzerland, it's also partly that social welfare state, but also in Switzerland, because so far many foreigners have bought in, the Swiss can't afford their own places. So that's also, and then you saw Norway is probably the exception of somewhere a lot of people make money out of oil and wood and those type of commodities, and they had a property boom at one stage. I'm not sure where it is now because I'm not really a student of that. But, you know, so we've got to take each country a little bit in its own history. I think what we need to say to South Africans, and I need to say to you, we're probably going to go through a period of about 5 or 6 years where property prices are not going to really move much in most of the country. And in that period, after that period, a new set of owners and ownership will probably take place, because right now we're not selling as many private sector houses as we did during the boom period. There's no doubt about it. There's about 27,000 was the high point. We're now only at about 10, 11,000 a month. Vito knows we do those statistics and so on. But the fact of the matter is, I think that will improve at some stage, and I think there'll be a new. So the other thing is that got government spending onto those houses, also present those houses to the people. They've now stopped that a bit. They should, to make that a real success, allow those ownership of those houses, of the RDP houses, through, say, let the people stay there for 2 years or 3 years, and so on, but then they transfer it. But say to people, this is the transfer to your family, and you're now last in line, because there's another problem there as well, as you all know, that many times the same family gets a house, but other families are excluded somehow. And in that process, that we then put that down and get that paperwork sorted out. That's where we need a bit more better bureaucracy, if I can call it that. Hope that answers that question.
We could go on forever, but Mike has a 5-year-old son who has a function tomorrow. He had great difficulty.
Second of, yeah. I'm talking to myself.
He had great difficulty explaining the 5-year-old son.
I got married late, okay?
I think the age of biblical miracles are over. Namens die Here studente baie dankie vir julle uitgekom het. I'm sure you'll agree with me, this was just I just think it's nice for a university to in real time have this kind of presentation.